Guys, so I wanted to show you how you could make Christmas cards or birthday cards. My dad's birthday is today and we're celebrating, so I made him a card and I'm going to show you how. So basically you can have, blank cards or cardstock. This was a blank card. It's got some interesting texture to it. So what I wanted to do was offset the watercolor painting with some black to make it pop. And then on the inside I used a dip pen and I wrote a greeting and put that in there. You could also design your front room for a greeting. So for instance, using a dip pen and some bronze calligraphy ink from P.H. Martin's, I did these Merry Christmases. And so you could cut these out if one of them turned out to your satisfaction and attach them to the front of a card or the inside of the card. So this smooth paper works pretty well for using a dip pen. I tried using watercolor paper and it just catches the dip pen way too much. So this is called black drawing paper from Fabriano. And it works here. This is silver calligraphy ink, and I had used this blue iridescent blue. It just says Dr. P.H. Martin's iridescent calligraphy colors, 7R iridescent blue. Anyway, so those are some of the materials, and have fun watching these. See if you like this idea for creating cards. Thank you. Hi everybody, it's Sarah Raymerdine. You're looking at a white sheet here because this is a 22 by 30-inch sheet of watercolor paper, and I was just going to show you how to break it down. So some people find this process intimidating. I'm back with a bone folder. This was from Stampin' Up, but I know you can get them elsewhere. Typically, you would wear cotton gloves when you handle your paper, but my hands are as dry as a bone, and they've been washed with dish soap over and over today, so we're good that way. So some people just say fold their sheet in half and then half again to make quarters, because if you do that, you get 4 11 by 15 sheets of paper. And 11 inches is a good width on the sides. So what I tend to do is I take the watermark and I see this is the top side of the paper. So I'm going to flip it in, and I try to be really careful where I score the paper because that's just my tape measure. Because as you get pressing it down, you have to keep aligning it with the other edge so you're not getting crooked. So what was I saying? 11 inches is good because a lot of people like to paint 11 by 14. And then if, because it's 15 inches, 11 by 15, then I take the 1 inch piece off. And I use that piece for testing my paint as I'm painting. So to show you this, I'm not sure what the best way is. I might stand up so you can't really see my face, but just watch my hands. So see the tip here? You just want to use a little bit of the tip. So you press just a little. You don't go like this and push in, because what you do then is you burnish the paper. And by burnishing, I mean you push the fibers flat, and there's a cold press texture to this that we don't want to lose. We don't want a burnished surface. Now some people take tracing paper, the whole sheet of paper in a tracing paper before they do this, and it helps prevent the burnishing. Now this is the back side, so I know it's not going to matter that much. But But here we are on the front side. So now I have to be extra careful just to use the very tip. Try not to touch more than, you know, 1/4 of an inch in with this bone folder. Flip it around, do it on the back side again. You don't have to be as careful here, and you can see that the paper is cracking, and it did start to crack on the very first time through. Can you see that? Okay, so one more time on the front side, carefully pressing. So we're trying to break the fibers so that when we tear the paper, it's more happy to comply with us. Okay, so now I take this paper in between my two hands and I touch right close to the place that I've scored it, and then I pull it apart. See that? Okay, now you can just pull gently, putting pressure right by where you're tearing, and voila. Now, it's best to have your surface ever so clean, because look, I got some paint on there. Now, I tried really hard to have a perfectly clean workspace, but it wasn't, I guess. So that's how it goes. Okay, I'm going to be right back to fold this piece down. So in case you're wondering what I do with that, that paper should go back inside plastic. I was have cardboard boxes that are like envelopes. So when I'm in a hurry, I just put them back in the cardboard. But it's best if they're stored in plastic. That helps protect the sizing in the paper and keep it good for a long time. And that's Pablo the budgie. Fortunately, that mess of paint was on the back side. So you just keep doing this until you feel that that paper is good and damaged. But you can see here how it starts to come apart. Okay, again, right at the edge where you want to tear, put your fingers really close, tear a little. Okay, putting fingers right where you're tearing. Pull with the other hand, and voila. Okay, so that's how to turn a sheet, a 22 by 30 sheet, into 11 by 15 quarters. Now, I'm going to make a card today, so I need a small piece of paper. So I'm going to use this piece that has the watermark because I don't really love having the watermark on a big painting. However, a lot of the time you're stuck with that, depending on the size. So I've got a 5 by 7 card here. It's my dad's 82nd or 83rd birthday. I always get confused. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is paint a little painting to put on here. So 5 by 7 is the approximate size of this, so I'm going to get a 4 by 6 piece of watercolor paper. Now it can be a little bigger, and then you can, I should sit down so you can see my face. It can be a little bigger than that, so, because you could trim the edges. But, so half of 15 is 7.5, and half of 11 is like 5.5. So, I guess, what I think I'm going to do is just fold it the size that I want, because then I'll have a bigger piece here that I can do like an 8x10 on later. So, you know, the reason I buy these big sheets is I can buy them unopened in a big pack, so nobody's touched them, nobody's made them greasy, nobody's stepped on them. You know that I once got a sheet of paper with actual footprint mark on it, and that really was awful. Yeah, anyhow, so here, I'm going to go 4.5. So what I do is I take my measuring tape, pull it out, and oh, there we go. Okay, so I can just leave my finger in there to hold the spot, and then start folding my paper. Okay. Put it down, remove your tape, put your bone folder, and have at it. Now, when you get a smaller piece like this, you can just cut it with your paper cutter. I have one that's big for, I had it for scrapbooking, and it's more than a foot. The measurements go more than a foot. So I often do that with the smaller pieces, but some people like the look of the torn edge of the paper, and they just enjoy it that way. So it's up to you, whatever you like. If you like a crisp cut, or if you like the fibers kind of torn. I'm being a little more sloppy here, but it's, this isn't a huge painting. It's not like it really matters a whole lot. Okay, so now, because my math sucks, math skills are not my thing. Let's see here. So I've got 10.5 because I went 4.5. And then, of course, this should be 11, yeah. So I can make a 10x10 square painting out of this, or I can fold it up and do other stuff. I can make an 8x10, and yeah. So you can decide how to best utilize your sheets of paper, but I have to tell you that when you buy these in bulk and store them well, then you'll have them forever. You can make your sketchbooks. Everything is so much less expensive when you do it this way. Buying, you know, blocks or pads of paper are much more expensive. All right, anyway, this is Arches 140-pound, excuse the cough, bright white, cold pressed paper. All right, now, we have our sheet here, and I want it to be about 6 inches. All right, let me see here. Measure this again. Oh, it's a little more than 7. So it could be a little more than 6. Let's see how, what's this? I might put a little piece of another color of paper underneath it to make it pop. So 6 inches is plenty, you know, and fold it here. Oops. So you can tell that I'm pushing with some force, and that's what's needed to break the fiber of the paper. If you're watching this, I appreciate your time, appreciate you hanging out with me, and I would dearly love it if you could tell me the things you would like to learn about watercolor painting, because I find it really daunting to come up with ideas. So if you have things you want to know about, as someone who's been painting for a while, I might know the answer. I will try to find you the answer if I don't know. So, okay, well, there's a time in the morning in the winter when there's this beautiful reddish, well, not red, but pink, really a rose color on the horizon. And then beneath it is a muted but darker blue. And we just had that cold moon, the full moon, and it was so gorgeous. And so when I look out my window here, I see a bunch of trees. A lot of them are paper birch. And then I see the lake, all frozen, covered in snow. And then I see the land, which is Mackenzie Island. And then the next thing up is this really pretty blue. Then there's rose. And then it kind of goes into a buff color, buff titanium. If you go higher, it's a blue. But just that section is what I want to capture. And then put the full moon in there. So I'm doing this a little bit by the seat of my pants. So here's gouache. So it's called Designer's Gouache from Winsor & Newton. This says 522 permanent white. And that's what I'm going to use to paint the moon on top. So for now, let's talk about the two Roman Schmal paints I have here. This is cobalt blue and it's PB72. And then this is ultramarine pink, PR259. And I sort of puzzled over what to do with these. Then I saw somebody else paint with buff titanium. Here's a little bit of buff titanium that I have in a shell. I'm going to use that. So as you're getting ready, start by putting some water on your paints and getting some kind of a palette to work with. Here, let's see. I'm going to just put the buff titanium there. You can see I've got a little bit of buff titanium here and a little bit of the cobalt blue there. Now this is a slightly granulating color, and that's okay because of what we're trying to paint. For brushes, you're going to need a liner brush, really fine liner. I was baking a cheesecake, so I got a apron on. Okay, so this is just a Simply Simmons liner in 10/0. And then I've got a little portable brush that came with the portable painter, I think. So sometimes I use that. And then when I did this on a bigger sheet, I used this 1.5-inch Mottler. It's a Princeton Aqua Elite. But that's too big for this piece of paper. So we'll get this. It's an Aqua Elite from Princeton, 3/4 inch brush, and that'll help us with our gradations on the page. And I was thinking of taping it down, but I think not. Let's just get this done. All right, now here, sometimes I really like a long round brush. So it's just a number 12 long round Princeton Aqua Elite. So it's got this really fine point. And then I've got an Aqua Elite 8, which is just a round, not fine tipped. This is good for mixing paint and stuff. So I'm going to go here, take my brush and sort of work in that buff titanium that's dried there. You can tell it looks a smidge green, but then we'll put a little more blue there because we want a powdery but dark blue, and I think we're getting about the right color here. And we don't need a ton of paint because it's not a big painting, but you need enough that you're not going to run out and have to remix it, because that's an annoyance. Okay, and then the other paint that I didn't tell you about is Lunar Black, because we want granulation in the distant shore. So here is Lunar Black, what looks like I need to add a bit more. Okay, so let's put that there. Now, I'm going to rinse my brush, get some paper towel. Gonna take this buff titanium in the seashell. It's got a magnet on the bottom for one of my palettes. Okay. So we need some plain buff for the top of this guy, and then we need to mix some with this color. And this PR 259 is just an interesting color, and it's really more blue leaning, but when you mix in the buff it goes more rose. So I like that. It just seemed like the exact right color. Okay, so to make this work the best, I feel that I don't want water on the paper, but then you have to really work fast because you don't want the edges. You want to make sure that they blend well. And oh, here we've got the buff getting mixed. Okay, well that might not be too bad of a thing here. I need more water on my brush. Ugh. Okay, so don't do like me, do like I said. Make sure you have enough of a mixture first. Okay, now going into this pink, and now I want it a little more pink, so I'm gonna go get a little bit more and try to make that a little more pink. All right, now I'm going to go into this blue. And I didn't really intend to mix them because now I have a violet, but you know, it could be there. All right, now we have our gradation. I'm just going to wipe the table here. And so now I'm going to put some distant land in there. And I don't want too much water, but some. Now, try to make a straight line. Okay, and now a bit of salt. Does it want to come out? Why is that? Well, here. There, you gotta look at the back of my head. Ah! So for some reason my sea salt topper is clogged, but this is table salt. So I just keep these cute little single place salt and pepper shakers with salt so that I can quickly grab salt when I want it. Okay, so the reason for that is that I want to have granulation in that distant land because I want it to look like snowy land, not black land. Alright, so now we have to let that set and do what it's going to do, and then we can come back in and paint our moon and trees. So we'll probably use a bit of perylene green for some, you know, balsam fir, and I got some perylene green over here, and I'll just put some water on it. And we got our gouache, and I also use titanium white from Holbein because it's probably one of the most opaque watercolor whites around. So when you want something really opaque, you can use the gouache, and when you want something not quite as opaque, you can use the white. And this little tube is almost gone, and it's my titanium white from, oh, let's see. Oh, this is Winsor & Newton. Well, anyway, it seemed pretty opaque when I used it the other day. There. So I use the pliers to squeeze out the last of the paint usually. I know people have special things that do that. Someday I'll get one, but I don't right now. Alright, so we'll see you back in a bit. But there's one thing that, I don't know, I wanted the colors a little different, but it doesn't have to be perfect, does it? If I go back in and try to change things now, it won't actually end well. So the best thing to do is just let it dry and then go from there. Okay, I'm just going to try to write Happy Birthday, Dad on some watercolor paper here. Now that's a little bit challenging with a dip pen. I've got my iridescent blue from P.H. Martin's Calligraphy Colors. A little too dry. Okay. Catches a bit on the texture paper. Running out of ink. So that's that, but it didn't turn out all that well. So I might use a less textured paper. That I was practicing on here. Now the only trouble with it is it's very thin, so it's probably see-through. So not ideal for a card, but okay, let's try that again. So we're not going for perfection, because that's not going to happen anyway. So, at least once that dries, I think that'll be alright. So, this is just a dip pen that's, let's see if I can even read it. I think it's the Browse, what some people nickname the Blue Pumpkin. Oh, a little rust in there. See? Can't tell you. Can't tell, guys. Browse, I see. Anyway, it's one of my favorite nibs for a dip pen. Alright, so that was messy. But we'll let that dry. and that'll be good enough. Okay, now, so one of the bad things is that I got a lot of granulation in the sky, but other things are going over top of it, so it doesn't really matter. So I have a suggestion for you. For your moon, find a circular thing that's clean in your studio. And I'm just going to try my thick Winsor Newton titanium white paint dipped on here. And I'm thinning it just a bit with a bit of water, but not too thin. So now that everything is all dry down here, I'm putting my moon right there. Ta-da! Now, if it's not opaque enough, we can go back and touch it up with a little more of the white paint, or if needs must, we can go use the designer gouache we have here. Alright, so now we've got to let that dry again, and you can see that when I rubbed off the salt, don't do that until it's completely dry. And I didn't wait long enough, and you can see that I got some dirt on the snow. Well, that's okay because it's just not even sunrise yet, so everything's dark. So I went in and I added a little bit of blue to the snow on the lake because it isn't pure white. It's not bright white yet because it's not light completely. All right, so if you're not going to paint right on top of that moon, you could start painting. And I thought I'd show you the one that I did before. This is a Cotty rough paper, 100% cotton, without a cover. It's a sketchbook that I got from the UK. I don't know where else to get it. It's 100% recycled cotton fiber. And it's my favorite, one of my favorite things. It doesn't work well for you know, glazing because of the rough paper and the fact that it's very, very textured. But anyway, here's some of my favorite colors. And one other thing is you seem to need to put some tracing paper in between the pages because it seems to rub off. Alright, anyhow, here, this was my first little effort here. There's a patch on Mackenzie Island that's open because it used to be a mine. Anyhow, and you can see how I got this. I like this better because I got it lighter than I got this one. This one's a bit too dark. But you can go in with your brush and lighten this if you want. You know, so you can see that the blue went over, the black went over the blue, and it's just a distant, hopefully snow-covered bit of land. And then we've got the paper birches and some balsam fir here in the front. Anyway, this is my view, zoomed in a little bit because I'm not quite that close to the island. And of course I've taken some liberty with these trees. It's not all like that. Anyhow, so here's some of my mixes that I came up with. And so I'm quite liking this one better than the one I'm working on right now. But, you know, that's the thing. You can do it over and over. You can do all sorts of things, can't you? And now that I see that, I kind of feel like I really do want to lighten this. So, having wetted your brush, go in and rub away a little bit. And then just tap it. And you can see quite a bit pulled off. Right at the top, I don't want a hard line. So I could have... Okay. Now, So I would like to paint a couple birches, and you know, our paper birches are mostly white, but they have a little, somebody's phone is going off. It's my husband's phone. Anyway, it's not perfectly white, so I'm gonna open this book so I can look at it. So we're mixing together a little with what's already there because we haven't let it dry entirely, but that's okay. Now while this is damp, we can go in with our black to make our branches. So they kind of go in a fan shape, branching out kind of like that. And it's kind of nice if the stalk is a bit wet and then this can bleed together because there is a bit of black in where the branches depart from the main trunk of the tree. Just, you know, it's not meant to be photographic. Just to give people the idea of what kind of tree this is. Try to vary the pressure of your brush. And right at the top, it's dark because the bark gets dark where the branches are. And here I'll just, oops, I don't like what I did there. But hey, again, it's just a card. It appears that holding my brush that way is not a good idea because I keep making wide lines. So you can go in and just kind of tap on that and try to lighten it without too much mess if you can. Okay, I accidentally stopped recording there. Alright, well, so things are getting a bit messy. And just keep going, don't worry. You know. Alright, so now how about if we put in a couple balsam fir trees with our perylene green, which is actually a black pigment. Over here you can hopefully see that. So I might put one right here, kind of overlapping this one. So balsam fir, they just kind of are like a cone in shape. Nice, in fact. Okay, here I just muted the sound for a little bit because my son came in to talk to me, and I'm just continuing to paint those balsam fir with the perylene black, or perylene green. Thanks. Oh! Okay, we'll let that dry, and then we'll come back and finish it. I want to put some snow on the trees. Well, we've got this dry, and now I'm going to put a little bit of snow on the balsam fir. So I'm going to use this round brush and not the others that seem to want to come along. Alright, so we're just going to add a little water to this white watercolor from Winsor Newton, just called titanium white. Give little, blotches of snow. Leaving some of the green sticking out. Alright, then I feel like my birch aren't white enough, so I'm just going to go in a little bit of the white on top. Okay. So I'm going to get that to dry and I'll be back. I've got the card done now, so I didn't sign it yet, which is what I will have to do. And you can probably go back in and add a little black to the tops of your trees if you feel the need, or various things. However, then the watercolor paper will probably, I can see I've got this right in my face. Anyway, the watercolor paper might bend if you add too much paint to it after you've made your card out of it. So basically all I did was I trimmed the edges and I glued it onto some black to make it pop. Then I glued it onto the card, and then I stuck my happy birthday dad greeting on the inside, and now we can sign it and give it to him. And I used these little sticky squares with double-sided glue to attach things. You need something that's pretty firm to attach your heavy watercolor paper on here. There's some things like Suquane tape or other tapes like that that they sell for scrapbooking, and some of those might work. But you don't want to wet glue, because if you do that, then you're wetting your watercolor paper, and that's not a good idea. Alright, so that's the famous 82nd birthday card. I hope it's good enough. And the thing is, you can do this with any of your watercolor paper, and you can just have some cardstock and bend it yourself to make a card. And you can make Christmas cards like this too. So I hope that was enjoyable and that had some value for you. And let me know if you decide to make some and paint along sometime. That would be fun. I'd like to hear from you. I'd really like to hear comments and so on. So here, you know how I am. I can't leave it alone. I'm just going in and touching up a little bit of black here. Excuse me. Alright, and then maybe a touch of the green in here. Make some of the green a little bit darker. No, you could fiddle around more and make the white whiter if you want. But It is a watercolor. You can make it however you like. It's yours. Okay? So I hope you had fun. Thanks. Bye.